This is the Support Podcast with Mike and Ryan. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Ryan. How's it going, man?
Good. What do we got going on today?
Been a little while for us. Not too much. Congratulations on your new puppy. Ryan got a new puppy today.
Thank you.
Ooh. We're gonna jump right into things this week. I know last episode we had. It's been a few weeks now. Last episode we had Joe on. That's a director for our support department. This week we're changing gears a little bit, but we're still going down the leadership role. And we're going to have our guest is going to be Chamberlain. He's also a director here in support at our support department in our software company. There we go. Hello, Chamberlain. How's it going?
Hey, it's going well. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure. This week we're going to talk a little bit about leadership. We're going to talk a little bit about race. We're going to talk a little bit about things that make people a little uncomfortable, it seems, these days, especially. Mm-hmm. In May, I believe it was May 25th, a pretty terrible thing happened to a man named George Floyd. He was killed while what seemed to be a pretty routine stop and arrest by Minneapolis police officers, and he was killed after 9 minutes of having his, or a little over 8 minutes, having his neck held pushed down by a knee of an officer. So with that being said, a lot of unrest has happened over the last several months. Obviously, this is not new. This is something that's been going on, since our country has been founded. I would probably say we've had a lot of these type of events that just seem to pass through, I guess is the unfortunate way to put this. So kind of want to talk a little bit about that, but let's start off by learning a little bit about Chamberlain. Chamberlain, tell us a little bit about where you come from, where you grew up. Tell us a little bit about your professional bounds, if you will.
Sure. Well, I was born in a town called Bartow, Florida, which is near here. Raised in Fort Meade in Winter Haven, Florida. That's where I graduated high school. College, I attended Albany State University, which is in Albany, Georgia. Where I learned in basketball for my 4 years there. After completing my basketball career there, I was in the military for 4 years in the U.S. Army Signal Corps, Desert Storm veteran, all that good stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you. And also throughout my career, I was fortunate enough to be able to play professional basketball in Europe. I played 2 years in Europe and 5 years total down in Brazil.
Wow.
Professionally. And once I got to the end of my career from an athletic standpoint, that's when I really decided it's time to really find a true job. and that brought me back to my military experience. Being that I was in the Signal Corps, I was basically introduced to IT. Like I said, this was back in 19 or so this was like early 90s. So early days, and right after moving back to Florida, that's when I worked with Verizon for 10 years. Started off in the Network Operations Center, became the manager of Network Operations Center, things of that nature. Went back to school full time while working. And obtained my MBA at that point.
That's tough.
So it was tough, man, but the reward was worth it. So been in leadership positions for the past 12 years or so, both from a service delivery side and also from an IT director standpoint. So very well versed both sides of the table when it comes to, let's say, from an MSP provider. What am I paying for? What is the value that you're bringing? What do you bring? What is the value? It's not all about how much. I realize how much I'm paying on a monthly invoice, but what is the value that you're bringing strategically for my company? What are you enabling me through your technologies? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you've had a wide variety of either jobs or lives. Even it sounds like you've come from many backgrounds, if you will.
Yes. Very fortunate.
That's great. Yeah, I personally I have a little bit of a problem traveling. I'm a little bit of a fear of traveling myself. So I've only gone to Canada when I lived in New York, and then anywhere I can drive, I try to go. Other than that, I've always wanted to go to Italy, but it's tough to take a boat over to Italy because I don't want to fly that far overseas.
Well, here's what you do: if you fly first class, there are no worries.
Is that all it is?
Just fly first.
Everything's fine. The first class, you don't crash, but if you don't get first class, you have a chance.
No, but in first class, in the event that you do crash, you're comfortable.
There it is. It's the key to life. As long as you're comfortable, it's okay.
You got your slippers on, you've got your robe on, you're good to go.
All right, I like it. So tell us a little bit about kind of your experiences. What experiences have you had as far as race and racism, as far as how you've experienced that in different parts of the world, or going from college and going into the business world. Did you have different experiences where you personally saw something different that maybe you didn't know when you were younger?
I'll tell you this. I'll reflect back to my younger days, my adolescent days. Like I said, born in Florida. Most of my childhood was spent in Connecticut, in Hamden, Connecticut, just outside of New Haven, Connecticut, where I can recall to this day. We were a suburban family. We were the only African American family in the neighborhood. Okay, I was the only African American male in my 5th and 6th grade class. Okay, there were other African American females in there, but I was the only African American male. So I'll say this from my perspective: there may have been some hidden racism that was out there, but I was never actually exposed to it, so to speak. And I think the thing that's always carried me is my personality and my respect for others. And I think that goes a long ways with regards to knocking down that initial barrier with regards to what type of person is this guy? Is he cool? Is he a jerk? Is he too street? Whatever it may be. Always been very approachable, and I've been the same throughout my life, and that just goes back to the way I was raised.
Well, when you were in high school, middle school, growing up, and in predominantly Caucasian neighborhoods, was there ever a point where you even a single incident or where you had to either hold back because there was some type of power struggle or power imbalance?
Oh, absolutely. And here's an example. Being that I lived in the suburban areas, I attended a suburban elementary school. There were inner city kids that were bused to my school. Those were some of those individuals were my pain points with regards to, you think you're this because you live here. We're from here. That's where the dynamics are. But hey, my skin is the same color as yours. Right. Just because just because my family, we're a little bit more fortunate than you to live in a specific area doesn't mean that I'm better than you.
Yeah, my parents felt something very similar. I know my mom grew up in Queens, I believe, and when she was growing up, she said it was very similar to what you would think of as like a musical, where different blocks had different ethnicities of people, or different races, or even different classes of people. Whether it's, she said that the Italians were all on one side of the street when she lived in Queens, and then across the other side of the road were the African American community, and then down the street were the Latino, and then down the street were the Chinese and the Japanese families that were all in that group. And those were specific ethnicities that were in these areas. And I asked her these type of questions as well. Was, how hard was it living through those? Because you had to get to school, so that means you had to cross through and had to work with people. She said it was less about what you looked like, and it was more about where you lived. And that's where you had your pride, was where you lived. And if you lived where you lived, you were kind of in trouble. So it was a little bit of a dynamic shift there as well, that they just all felt that you didn't, as long as you didn't go, she had friends of all different ethnicities and all different backgrounds, but if you were with your group of people, it didn't matter what they were, who they were, or what part of the place that they lived. You didn't talk to the other people, and that was in the 60s and 70s. So I would assume, a little bit later on, it was probably similar.
Yeah, and I can also reflect back to even in when I attended high school in Connecticut, complete segregation. You had, like you said, you had the Italians, you had the Irish, you had the African Americans, you had the whatever, different groups. Back then, when I was attending high school, there were armed police officers in the school.
Wow.
I'm gonna repeat that. There were armed police officers in the school because there was that much racial tension mid 80s that occurred. But the one saving grace on my end, which was athletics. Played football, played basketball, so it was a mixture of all races. you're good, you're cool because hey, leave him alone. He does this.
You're part of another group.
Yeah, you can
I'm
carry.
part of
As
another
long as you
group.
can carry your weight, right? I mean, that's kind of yeah.
Exactly. But remember also that builds up some anxiety with regards to those that are your colleagues that don't have that privilege as far as being an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
Hey guys, come over here with me. No, stay with me. Hey, why are you always going with those? It was, now that we're just having this discussion, I had a rough childhood, and I didn't realize it.
That's tough. I mean, that sounds
tough.
It sounds like something that we experience a lot when we're getting older, where you don't realize what you really experienced and how tough it was because you don't talk about it. And exactly. A lot of it, and it's a big problem with men. It seems a lot more often, and we're going to discuss this in a later podcast, I'm sure, because we're going to discuss anxiety and depression at some point in the future.
Right.
But this is something that is very tough, and I know for personal experience, I see a therapist, and I just started seeing one and learning about my mental health, specifically about me, over the last 4 or 5 years. So it's been pretty new, and I know 4 or 5 years sounds like a little bit of a longer time, but it's not. It's especially when you're trying to relearn about yourself and some of the things in your past and the things that you have gone through. It's eye-opening to understand, and it's okay. And I think this is something that is really important because we have 3 different walks of life right here in this podcast that we're discussing about race, which is a very tough thing to talk about. And sometimes it's tough because you want to talk about it, you want to ask questions, and you want to learn about it. But often you walk on eggshells because you are worried about what other people are going to perceive about you just because you have a question. So how do you as an African American then process those type of things where people ask you about this type of stuff? Do people engage you on this to learn about where you come from as an African American man in a racial tense situation?
Yeah. You know what? You brought up a good point because you have to be prepositioned for the dialogue or the conversation. And what I've learned over the years, and I've always had this mindset, is there's a reason. Someone just needs clarity. Someone needs clarity. You can't have an assumption that someone mindset takes them a certain way or their perception a certain way. Listen, and I've very been open to listen. Listen to someone's concerns. Like you, Mike, I've known you we've been together for almost 6 months or so. I realize your passion, and also, kudos to you for realizing that you got to the point where you needed some assistance to talk to someone. Like you said, as a male, that normally doesn't happen. Yeah. We're tough, we're strong, and you're coming from a Sicilian background. You don't do that.
Yeah, it's tough.
It's tough, and I'm just curious. I know this is a totally different conversation. Your family, how are they taking it? How are they accepting what you're doing?
That's a great question because that is something that we are dealing with, and it is a very it is based off of where you come from, I think, and your background as far as your family and your upbringing, because my family is very old school Sicilian. My dad comes from Palermo, from Sicily. My mom's whole family, my mom was actually conceived in Italy and came over when her mom was pregnant with her, and because her mom wanted to have children in America because they had a lot of plight in Italy, and it was tough for them. So it was something that they had to fight through and work through. Now, with that being said, it's a lot of pride when you have that.
Absolutely.
You're fighting through a lot of being poor and not having anywhere to go, and people that don't understand you, and they can't,
That's right.
When my dad came over, he was not in a good spot. It was tough for him. So, he didn't have any outlet. So when I tried to talk to my parents about it, I can say, it starts when I was a very young kid. My dad would not know how to literally ask me if I'm okay or what's wrong because it wasn't something that he didn't grasp.
Usually a surprise.
It's tough. It's something. It's something that you try really hard to be able to express, but when you don't see it from your family and they don't expect it from you, because if you do, it's sensitive, you immediately change course. So it's different, but I think that it was something that became an educational thing for all of us. I guess it was a really good thing. So my family has kind of embraced it a little bit more. My parents especially. Me and my mom have a great relationship, and my dad have a great relationship, and it's I think it's mostly when they had grandkids, it was like, oh my God, we don't have to yell at these kids anymore. We just give them whatever they want. and then it started, it changed a little bit. That we got to hear a lot more I love yous and stuff, because that's stuff that they just didn't hear when they were young. So it's easy to get mad, but it's not easy to just be able to understand that they're people too, and they're growing up as well. That is a great question. And I guess I can push that back to you. Did you have conversations with your family growing up about whether it's being impoverished or not, wherever you grew up, or your feelings or race relations, and how you have dealt with, being an African American in a society like this?
And I'll share this with you. My father passed when I was 5 years old, so I didn't grow up with a father, but I had a lot of strong women around me, and also strong grandparents. I had two grandfathers, and I just wanted to share this. One thing that I instilled, I have 3 sons, is that love, that affection. Be vulnerable somewhat. Hug, kiss, I love you, things of that nature. Yeah. They hear from their dad. And I know plenty of male figures, fathers, so to speak, that don't show that love with it. They don't feel comfortable.
Yeah.
They don't feel comfortable. They don't feel comfortable.
You don't know how to do it, and you don't know how to say it. And your child is a kid, right? So they don't have a fully developed conscious and mindset. So they're trying to learn from you, and you are broken because you come from a broken family who doesn't know how to speak to their feelings. So everybody cascades down to you, where you just need a little love, or need a little, you want to pet a puppy. An old comedian said, you just want to pet a puppy, and you just got to push that down because it's not nice. You can't like puppies and like kids. So it is. Yeah. It's something that is it's against what a lot of people, and a lot of people have great childhood memories where they have the best, just like you said, it's full of love, and that is awesome. Some of us are not quite as fortunate, but you try to find the places where they come from, and understand that your parents not necessarily, and some are bad people, but most of the time they don't know. They're kids just like you. Think about when you're 20 years old. Most of our parents were probably 20 to 25 when they had kids, and they didn't know anything, and they didn't have the internet to check on things. I check everything on the internet, so I can't imagine what it's like to not go back and check references on things. So they did the best they could. I made it to 37. I feel great. I'm so proud of my parents for keeping me alive.
I'll tell you, there's one thing with regards to even public affection with your kids. I have 3 boys and my daughter. My daughter's going on to college. Kissing my children, holding their hand, giving them hugs and kisses. As a man, that's part of my responsibility to transcend that to them. Hey, it's okay. It's okay to shed a tear. It's okay to show some emotion.
Yeah, and I'm gonna even say it. I would even probably say it as an African American man, because it's there's a lot of these the footage that I'm seeing of people protesting and marching and doing all this stuff peacefully. I see conversations between men talking about their fight, and this fight that they're talking back and forth about. This is my fight. I'm 50 years old, and now my son is 25, and he's doing this fight. And we've been fighting through anger, and we can't fight through anger anymore. We have to fight another way, because obviously the anger is not working anymore. So the anger just gives into the hate that the other side is showing, and you can't be that person. It just propagates more hate.
Yeah, absolutely. Because even on that, with that anger, there's frustration. There may be jealousy, animosity, with regards to where you are in your life. I'm 32 years old. I haven't finished high school, whatever that scenario may be. I have a right to be angry because I've been oppressed. Have you really been oppressed, or it's just choices that you've made?
I think it's both.
It's going to be both. I would say it's probably a little bit of both. I think we as a society have a responsibility to give those folks a chance, because though you're absolutely right, I do agree. I think that it is within ourselves. You have to be able to do that. But if you we probably all heard something similar. If you're starting the race 30 seconds behind the next person who's winning, you have now 30 seconds to make up, and that is not fair, right? That's not fair because of the color of your skin. And that's really what it comes down to. Is right off the bat, you're already a little bit behind everybody else. But you're absolutely right. I think a part of that is, it doesn't mean that you take the foot off the gas. It doesn't mean that you go, well, because I started 30 seconds early, well, now I'm out the race. Well, no, you still have to live, and you still have to fight, and you still have to make things right for the people that come after you and that are fighting with you. And I think that is a big part of what we're trying to show here in this movement that we're running through is this doesn't seem to be an end in sight. There never seems to be an end in sight, but for some reason, this one seems different.
I mean, that's why it's
This
called
one
progress,
seems-
right? It's progress. We're always trying to move forward. There's always a better version
Right.
than what we have now. And I, really quick, I want to go back to the comment that you made, Chamberlain, about how growing up, even though you were black and the people that came into from the inner city, where they were the same race as you, there was a socioeconomic difference. And that created tension in itself. And I found that interesting because growing up, like, I grew up pretty privileged. So I was ignorant. I was knowingly ignorant, which sounds weird, but like I knew how much I didn't know, or I knew that I didn't know as much as everybody else. I didn't deal with as many problems. And when I grew up, I worked for Publix for 8 years, and I got to work with other people who went to public school. I went to a private school, right? And I actually found those people much more interesting and much more reliable to hang around with, people who weren't as well off than my peers at school. But sometimes I would get introduced to their friends, and they would blow me off or give me a hard time or straight up try to bully me because they're like, "What do you know? Like, you're just a rich kid. Like, you're a rich kid. You don't know what's going on." And I'm like, you want to apologize. You're like, "I'm sorry. I don't know. Like, tell me what I don't know so I can learn." And I just remember, just based on what you said, that just resonated with me because it's a struggle in itself. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And then the one thing you just said, the scenario basically that I brought up a minute or two ago, with you just asking, hey, I need clarity on some things. Depending on the individual that you're trying to engage, they may put up that wall. They may push back.
You don't
they
get
may
it.
Try
you
to,
won't get it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. You don't get it. You don't get it. But help me understand is what you're saying. Help me understand. You won't get it. So it's kind of back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
Man.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough. And I just, I feel from like my kids. I feel for my kids growing up. Like right now, I have wonderful children. I have great children, great foundation, but they have not come to me as of yet with regards to, because they are in public school and one is in private school with a very diverse audience around them. No issues with regards to this person called me this name or this name,
So I can add to that because I can tell you, I've been struggling with this for the last month or so when we discussed having this podcast about bringing this specific thing up.
Sure.
So I actually started exploring this. I had an instance I have to be very careful here because I have to say, though my experiences are my experiences, and I have felt these things, they are not the same as somebody that is maybe African American or of a different race that has experienced some of the similar things, because I am fortunate enough to have a skin tone that still matches the wide majority of Caucasians. But I'm actually Sicilian, which stems down from Middle Eastern and African descent, very, very short distance from my ancestors. So not that I do or don't identify myself as anything. That's not what this is about. But when I was in high school and growing up, I had dealt with a lot of encounters where there were people that called me names that were derogatory for Italians that I didn't ever talk to my parents about. And I actually just recently talked to them about it. And what I learned was that, and this is something that's a little eye-opening, was my father dealt with the exact same thing when he came from Italy. So when he came from Italy, he was talked to in these ways by what he thought were his friends. And because of that, they just said those words to him. And then now, me being now in my 30s, after 20 years of having to go through this, what I thought were my friends, is experiencing these type of things that maybe they weren't quite my friends, or maybe they didn't understand what they were saying. But either way, it was willfully obtuse. It was obviously something that nobody else was called these names and nobody else was treated this way, but I was. So why? What did I do, or what was on me? I'm proud to be a Sicilian. I'm proud of my heritage. So why did I feel less proud now? Why did I feel not so good about myself? So what I would question or ask is, maybe they're afraid to say something if that were to have come up, because
or they're trying to be funny. They're trying to be funny, and they don't know that that's not that funny for you. I feel like that comes up, at least in my experience. That's what comes up even nowadays. Right. People crack a joke. They'll say a common thing. I mean, we're in IT, right? So we deal with India-based colleagues, and sometimes there's jokes with that, right? And you don't think anything of it, right? I mean, you just don't even. Sometimes there's not even a second thought, and then it's like, well, wait a minute. We're all just people, right? So it's like,
that's right.
I just the mentality needs to be, is what I'm saying going to affect the other person negatively, and I'm not trying to achieve that. And not everybody, that takes thought, that takes energy, and not everybody does that, and you have to constantly check yourself.
You have to have a full understanding that we're all different. We are all different. Even from our India colleagues with regards to some type of communication issues. What about someone with a heavy German accent, or even a British accent at times?
We are dealing with people across the world when you work in a support department, whether it's partners, colleagues, clients, bosses, people underneath you, people that next to you. No matter what, if you have either people that are coworkers or people that you are trying to work with to help, they are coming from a place that I guarantee you is different from where you come from. If you don't highlight that, and I think that it's important, I think we all deal with something like this. I think this is a challenge that we all deal with. Is understanding that person has a different culture, and though they have a different culture, you can still
same goals
communicate effectively, and you can still have the same goals. And though you just said that we are all different, that we have more that align us than actually separate us, even still. So even through some of that stuff, you can get through some of the harder things and some of the things that you think are boundaries or roadblocks, like language barriers or anything like that. And you can ask for clarity, and that is not a bad thing. It's doing the things where you make fun of people because of the way they sound or the way they talk or the fact that they can't explain themselves a certain way. It's something that we are very, I am a jokester. I've always been that kind of guy. So I fall back on jokes. Usually it's to tease myself because that's the way to calm things down a little bit. But I've always been that kind of guy. I've always been a silly kind of person, but I've always had a hard time just simply telling somebody and putting them down just because I want to put them down for my own sake. I feel like that's
pretty rare.
A boundary that I don't want to cross, and I think that is a big deal.
And I don't think that most people in a normal, especially where we work in a professional setting, even in a professional setting, and I could be wrong, and maybe I'm just privileged, but I haven't experienced that a lot, where people just straight up are trying to put other people down just for no reason. You know what I mean?
Maybe not. Maybe it's backhanded, right?
Maybe it's something small, and then like there's a comment and then stuff like that, and that's for me. I always try to go into the mentality that it's something I did. You know what I mean? It's like you made a comment about dealing with people who may not be able to communicate as well because of accent and stuff like that. And it's like, it's not their fault. It's like, I'm sorry that I can't understand you as well. I need to do better. I need to try to slow down and listen better and repeat, for instance, repeat what you're saying back to me. I was just doing that today when I was training some colleagues where they would say something, I would have trouble hearing it. I'd be like, so what you're saying is this. And they would be like,
exactly.
Yes. And then that allows it to move forward. So instead of just being like, and then moving on or ignoring what they said. Right. So.
But you know what? That's a great point there with regards to having that type of sensitivity awareness with regards to dealing with colleagues, especially let's say in IT. We need to do a better job of that, being more receptive, finding out ways to communicate to get a better understanding. Because you have to remember, put yourself in their shoes, whomever whatever culture this may be stemming from. They're doing the best that they can to communicate to you.
Right.
I mean, this is probably their second or even third or fourth language that they speak.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? Compared to our
I barely know one.
I
don't even know one.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And we have the audacity to shun them out, so to speak, or to make fun of them.
Judge,
and they could basically say, you know what, guys, you speak one language. I speak 7 languages.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that's usually the case too. Right? It seems to be that we always we don't have to change. I'll say
Exactly.
the same. You change to me. I want you to adapt to my situation, and I think we can do a little bit
We're in
better
America.
job of.
You're in
Right.
America. Speak American.
And I think we
I
can do a
always
little
got
better job of empathizing and say we have one language and we can speak this one language overall together. And no matter how we get to this goal, this is our goal here. That's what we need to make clear.
goal is
we
what
have a goal
matters.
here, right?
Yeah,
And that's what matters. And I think where we work is a great example of of success in having cross-cultural engagements.
We're really good at integration.
And I think we've done a really good job kind of gathering folks from different walks of life. We have in our leadership, we have different cultures all over the place, all over the world that are actually, whether in the United States or out of the United States. And I have great relationships with all of them because they come together, they work together. And whether it's they as in the bigger they, or if it's they as those individuals, it doesn't matter. It's as a leadership team, we don't focus on what we have that is different. We focus on what we have that is equal, and we focus on what is ahead of us. Yeah. And I think as long as you do stuff like that, you're not worried about the things that really don't matter, which honestly, when it really comes down to it, race is all race really is a function of where you come from. And that is, we as humans tend to gravitate as like a prideful creatures, and we try to go gravitate towards like-minded individuals,
towards the tribe.
Just like you said, well, you were the only African American. Well, once you went into the basketball team, guess what? You were no longer an African American. You were a basketball player.
Exactly.
It's those type of things, and it's kind of silly, but it's true. It's like, why do we do this? Why do we have these groups of individuals? Well, you know what? It's because most of the time these little communities is where we grew up and where we learned about value.
It's safe.
Well, and it's safe, exactly. And I think that sometimes that can be bad too. I think that those communities, there can be bad people in those communities that start spreading bad things. So, we can try to weed those people out a little bit better.
And I do think it's getting better as time goes on. I do. Not too long ago, it was weird, to talk about like homosexuality and all that. And then now that it's completely, it's legal to me, if someone even brings it up as an issue, it's like, it's 2020, man. It's not even a point of discussion. It doesn't even matter. You know what I mean?
I mean, that's a similar issue, is that you're right, is like, but again, it's to you and to me, it's privilege to be a straight person that doesn't have to deal with the fight every single day of waking up and going, is today going to be a day that I'm just completely destroyed because of either my sexuality, my race, my color? It doesn't matter what it is. You have a thing that is an adjective that separates you from another person, and people hate you for it. That's what you have to worry about.
That's the only reason.
That is what. There's no other reason, and that's what the crappy part about this is that, though you're right, I think we are doing better. And like I said when we first started this podcast this afternoon, is that the George Floyd thing is, this is different than it has been in the past. From I only go back as far as 1983, so the stuff that I remember is like Rodney King and the early to mid 90s, and that was bigger than just the racial injustice there. It was class injustice too. It was the elites versus everybody else, and it was something that is still going on today. It's always going to happen until they worry about the people that are really the essential people that we talk about now in COVID. But the essentials are really the people that are fighting every single day when some people are not quite doing that. And it's those people have to be the ones that go, hey, we still have issues here. We still need to fight through this. And though you're right, things are getting better, I think that we still need to...
The attitudes are changing. Like the problems and the injustice has not changed. It's still been there. It's just like what we tolerate is changing. You know what I mean?
Right.
We're not tolerating it. Like, why are we still doing this? Why are we still saying these things? Like, what do we gain? We gain more. We have bigger problems. We have climate change, stuff like that. Way more, let's all work together and get this fixed, instead of still having this stuff going on for hundreds of years. It wastes time. It's dumb.
I'll say one thing. Like I said, the plight of the African American have been going on for many years. So you have the civil rights marches, things of that nature, through the 60s and 70s. But the one thing I would say with with regards to what's occurring today is it's a blessing that we have cell phones and video.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'll say this, in the African American community, we aren't surprised by a lot of things.
Right.
You are. You're surprised.
Yeah.
You're surprised because you're saying, oh, I can't believe this. Oh, my gosh, that doesn't happen. Now we can show you what we've been saying for 40, 50 years. Yes, this has been going on.
Yeah.
And thank goodness people like yourselves have the open mind to say, you know what? You're right. There is something going on. This isn't fair. This isn't fair because right now the melting pot is coming together with regards to the injustice. If it was strictly African Americans, you saw where we were. We had a slow roll, a slow timeline, so to speak. But now that we've gotten a much broader audience, a global audience now.
Yeah.
It's global.
You start to see how widespread it is too. It's like it's not just me. Yeah. It's there and there and there and there.
Right.
Yeah.
It's everybody. Yeah. And I think that a bigger deal is going to be how you weed out those people. Right. Something that I was taught by a mentor of mine was when you set up a culture, whether it's in a business or whatever, when you have a culture that you have set up and it's sound, the people that don't fit into that culture stick out like a sore thumb, and they will be exposed immediately. And we are in a spot now in our culture in the world where the people that are being that are either complicit with police brutality or okay and closing their eyes to racism or sexism, or anything.
You can't do that anymore. You can't close your eyes.
You are not going to be. It's not going to be an easy battle for you anymore.
Yeah.
It used to be where you can say no, I didn't know, or no, it's
exactly.
Or it's not my problem. It's not like you have to. I feel like nowadays you kind of have to pick a side. Either you're with us, or if you're not with us, you're against us. You know what I mean? And in the past, to be like, well, this doesn't affect me in my society, so it's not there. But it's like literally outside our doors, and it's all on the internet. I can literally just look at my phone and just look and just see something brand new every day. And it's like if you don't have a opinion on that, I feel like everybody does, but if you don't want to be involved, at least don't make it worse. So like, but in the end, like you're with us or you're against us, and it sucks. It's like that. Yeah. There's a lot of fighting right now going on in our country because of that. But we're either moving forward or moving back, and that's people need to accept that one way or another. The train's moving.
Yeah, it works the same way in our department too, or in our company, or in our careers. I guess last couple of questions. I think we're probably getting close to time here.
Yeah.
But
really? Really?
Yeah, it's quick.
It's only been 37 minutes.
That's it. Huh?
Time flies.
Time flies. Timekeeper.
We'll go one more question for you. I want to know what your thoughts are. Tell us what we as individuals, whether we are African American, whether we are Caucasian, it doesn't matter. What can we do to make things better, to identify and learn more about racism and try to overcome it?
No, I think I may read my quote.
Read the quote.
Absolutely.
Read it.
Let me read my quote. I'm going to read this now. I don't have my glasses, so please help me out. Okay. Okay, here we go. No living white person is responsible for slavery, but all living whites recap its benefits, just like all blacks wear its scars. I'll read it one more time. No living white person is responsible for slavery, but all whites reap its benefits, just like all blacks wear its scars.
Whether you know it or not.
I think it's
whether you know it or not.
I think that's a big part of it too, is that you don't know it. And that's okay that you don't know it, right?
It's okay. It's okay that you don't know, but I think it comes back to, and I don't want to really bring into a lot of religion into this discussion, but treat those how you would like to be treated. It goes back to that. You know you're wrong if you're trying to keep your foot down on someone, not to help someone up, to pick your fellow brother up.
Yeah.
You know you're wrong. You weren't raised like that, so to speak. The old school, like the old parents. You weren't raised like that.
Yeah.
So an effort to do better is have forums like this to speak. And for African Americans, be sensitive to when individuals are asking questions, because you want to know how can I do better? It's not as simple as, well, you're privileged, you won't understand, or you're not as poor as me or well off as me, or whatever it may be.
You don't have to be.
Talk.
Yeah.
You don't have to be. talk.
Yeah.
Let's communicate, and I know historically things are changing. You've noticed some of the materials in the books now. Christopher Columbus, blah 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 blah. Things are changing. Oh shoot! I thought he discovered America. No, he was. All this good stuff is coming out now.
Yeah.
Before you your opinion should be driven more on different sources of information, not just one source
Especially
of information.
now.
Yeah,
Right.
do your homework. You're going to get everyone's a different folks' perspective. Then you make your decision,
Yeah.
and your decision should be made from here, if anything. It should be made from your heart, not with regards to what Mike is in agreement with or what Ryan agrees with. No, what is that voice inside of me saying? I think that's important. That's how we get better.
Cool.
I think that's a perfect way to end it. What do you guys think?
That was good. I like it.
That was okay. Okay.
It was a pleasure,
Cool.
Chamberlain. Thank you very much for hanging out with us for a little bit. Ahern, Ryan, it's always a pleasure, sir.
See you guys.